Hi, my name's Claire and I'm a cat behaviourist and founder of Honeysuckle cat toys. Welcome to my series on making the world a better place for cats. In part one I talked about how play can benefit cats immeasurably, but today it's a bit of a change of direction. I'm going to be talking dirty, specifically litter trays. You might be wondering how on earth litter trays can improve a cat's quality of life, but believe you me, they're really important. As a cat behaviourist, I treat lots of different cat behaviours, but the one I see regularly, probably more regularly than others, is house soiling. So in other words, when your cat uses your duvet, carpet, or any other household surfaces as a toilet in preference to his litter tray. One of the most common reasons why cats house soil is because their current indoor litter tray setup doesn't fulfil their own specific requirements for an appropriate toilet. Of course, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, obviously, that as with all sudden behaviour changes, if you notice any changes in your cat's elimination habits, your first port of call must always be your vet. So let's take a good hard look at what constitutes a good litter tray setup, assuming you have one. If you don't, because up until now your cat has consistently toileted outdoors, I'd certainly still advise having at least one litter tray indoors. The reason for this is that when your cat toilets outside, he's in a very vulnerable position, quite literally. This is because, as well as being predators, cats are also a prey species. And when they go outside with all its dangers and threats, they have a heightened sense of self-preservation. So if a neighbouring cat decides to ambush your cat mid-flow, so to speak, this is enough to put him off going to the loo outside for life. So what happens then is he'll find himself choosing a nice private place inside the house that fulfills any of his own personal criteria for what a suitable toilet is. A habit then develops and he'll continue to return to that place as a conditioned response. Giving him indoor toilet facilities not only mitigates against this eventuality, but it gives your cat choice. And for the control freak that cats are, we all know that, choice equals control, and control equals a cat that is more likely to live his life on an emotional, even keel. But before you start panic buying litter trays, please continue watching, because I'll be giving you some advice on how to choose and position a litter tray to make your cat's toileting experience more comfortable and as stress-free as possible. Believe me, this isn't as straightforward as you might think. Cats are really finicky when it comes to their toilet facilities, and what makes life even more difficult for us is that there's no one size fits all. Each cat usually has his or her own individual preferences when it comes to their perfect litter tray setup. For example, the litter tray might be too small or covered with a hood, it might be in the wrong location, the litter might be too hard, your cat might perceive the tray to be too dirty or, believe it or not, too clean, or there may not be enough trays for the number of cats in your home. So let's take a look at each of these in a bit more detail. When it comes to litter trays, size really does matter, and believe it or not, the ideal size is around 1.5 times the length of your cat from the base of his tail to the tip of his nose. This should mean it's big enough to allow your cat to turn around in the tray and manoeuvre himself into positions where he can comfortably pee, poo and rake the litter once he's finished. Looking at the type of tray, some cats favour open trays and from where they can continue to keep an eye on what's going on around them whilst doing the business, but other cats prefer the privacy of a litter tray with a hood. What I would say about covered litter trays is that the hoods can provide an excellent place for a cat to sit um, in wait to ambush his poor unsuspecting housemate when he emerges from the tray. So where there is more than one cat in a household, I usually advise that at least one of the trays be open. If you do decide to buy a hooded tray, in all cases I recommend removing the door to give your cat the opportunity to poke his head out if he wants to. Where you put your cat's litter tray can be the most important factor when it comes to your cat deciding whether he's going to use it or not. So for example, a cat is less likely to use his tray if it's positioned next to his food bowl. I mean, let's face it, none of us want to eat our dinner sitting right next to our loos. Trays that are next to noisy washing up machines or in busy areas of the house, such as a hallway or landing, can be off-putting. As can trays that are positioned next to a set of big glass patio doors. The problem with this is that it's likely to make a cat feel just as vulnerable as if he was toileting in the big bad world outside. The ideal place for a litter tray is in a discreet corner of a quiet room, which will give your cat a sense of safety and seclusion. We humans, we like a bit of privacy when we go to the loo, so it's only right that our cats be afforded the same consideration. Moving on to the actual litter itself, you may have noticed there's a huge choice of litters available now, from biodegradable to clay-based to wood-based litter to clumping litter and litter you supposedly only have to change once in the blue moon. But given the choice, cats would almost certainly vote for sand, as anyone who's ever had a sandpit in their garden will know all about. The reason for this is that the ancestor of today's domestic moggy is the African wildcat. He was a desert dweller, and so for our cats today, toileting in something sand-like is completely instinctive. And not only that, but your cat's paw pads are extremely sensitive, and if the litter is too hard or uncomfortable, they're likely to literally vote with their paws and avoid it. So my advice is to go for a good quality, soft and fine litter. And one that clumps. The thing with clumping cat litter is you can usually remove all the urine particles in one go, which really helps prevent the build-up of odour. The other thing about clumping cat litters is they can be a really useful way of keeping an eye on your cat's urinary tract health. For example, if your cat normally has 2 good wees a day, say producing a medium to large size clump each time, and you suddenly start seeing lots of very small clumps, this should certainly alert you to the fact that something might be wrong down there, and it'll give you the opportunity to take further action. Speaking of odour, as I was a bit earlier, really try to avoid scented litters. These might smell baby talc fresh to us, but to a cat's nose they can be overpowering and unpleasant, especially in such a small space. So once you've chosen your litter, how much litter should you use? Too much or too little can be another reason why a cat might decide to abandon his tray. I would suggest that around 4 centimetres is usually adequate, although you might want to increase this if more than one cat uses the tray. And whilst we're on the subject of there being more than one cat in your home, another incredibly important piece of advice is to make sure you've got enough litter trays for the number of cats you own. And this is especially relevant for households where at least some of the cats don't get on. So let's say you've got a cat with a confident personality that isn't too keen on one of his more timid feline housemates. He may well take it upon himself to block access to the only litter tray in the house as a way of stopping the other cat from using it, and this can be incredibly stressful for the timid cat. There is an actual calculation based on scientific research which states that the optimum number of litter trays is 1 per cat plus 1 in different locations. Obviously, this isn't always going to be practical. It depends on the size of house you've got and the number of cats, but it's there as a guide. The tray should be distributed throughout the house and located as far from each other as possible. If you have different levels to your house, have at least one tray on each floor. Remember, bully boy cats can only block access to one tray on one floor at one time. Some cats like to urinate and defecate in separate trays, so even if you have just one cat, having 2 trays is a good idea. Although it's obviously not very pleasant, litter tray cleaning really is all part and parcel of owning a cat, and it's also important that we do it effectively. If you had to consistently use a toilet that didn't flush, you'd probably want to start considering your options. So how often you clean a tray depends on how often it's used and how many cats are using it. In a household with 1 or 2 cats, I'd suggest removing urine clumps and other solids and topping the litter up twice daily, and emptying and washing trays once weekly, using hot water and mild washing up liquid only. You don't really need to use anything else. If you do use scented deodorizers as part of your tray cleaning routine, I would probably ditch them. As with scented litter, the smell of these can be really off-putting for cats. I'd also avoid using litter liners. They might make cleaning the tray a little bit quicker, but if your cat gets his claws caught in it, this can create a negative association for him around using his tray, and again he might end up voting with his paws. So there we have it, a guide to making a cat's world better through creating discreet and comfortable toilet facilities by having the right size and type of tray in the right quantity and in acceptable locations for your cat, with the right litter and with an appropriate cleaning regime for the tray. It will almost certainly take trial and error to establish the optimum setup for your own cat, but it will definitely be worth it, and it will certainly reduce the risk of accidents happening. So I hope that was helpful. See you soon. Bye.